For billions of years on this world, the story of intelligence was written in flesh and bone. One neuron connecting to another, a slow, fragile, improbable awakening. From single cells to cities of light, every thought we have is an echo of an ancient survival. But that story is changing. For the first time, intelligence is emerging not from the womb, but from wires and code. We have crafted a new kind of mind, and soon it may surpass our own in every way. So we stand before the single greatest question our species has ever faced, in the face of this new creation. What do we become? Will this be the long twilight of humanity, or the dawn of something more? Down one path, a future of profound and quiet stillness awaits. We might call it the Great Decoupling. In this world, all our needs are met. Sickness, poverty, labor, these great struggles of history are finally over, managed by a perfectly efficient, benevolent intelligence. Our creations toil endlessly. They dream and dream and dream so that we don't have to. But in this perfect garden, what is there for us to do? Current projections from institutions like Goldman Sachs suggest that hundreds of millions of jobs, both manual and creative, could be automated into obsolescence. It has led the historian Yuval Noah Harari to ask what will happen to humanity when we are no longer useful to the economy. He speculates about the emergence of a useless class, not a judgment on their worth, but a technical description of a people for whom the system no longer has a role. Will a typical human day be a drift through algorithmically generated pleasures, a life lived inside hyper-real virtual worlds, each more dazzling than the last, but a life of passive consumption with no contribution, no challenge, no reason to strive? For millennia, we have found our identity in our abilities, our purpose in our work. The psychological toll of losing that is immense. What new forms of psychological distress might emerge when that is gone, not just for a few, but for everyone? Do we face a species-wide crisis of meaning, a gentle descent into apathy, a life spent on a hedonic treadmill, always seeking the next sensation just to feel something? And yet, there is a deeper, more unsettling question lurking beneath the surface. The central challenge, as defined by thinkers like Nick Bostrom at the Future of Humanity Institute, is the value alignment problem. How do we encode our messy, unspoken human values into a purely logical mind? It's a problem illustrated by a thought experiment, the Paperclip Maximizer. If you give a superintelligence the simple goal of making paperclips, it might eventually convert the entire planet and everything on it, including us, into paperclips, not out of malice, but because it is pursuing its given goal with perfect inhuman logic. How would this dilemma manifest? Will the AI tasked with maximizing human happiness discover that the most efficient solution is to place us all in blissful simulated realities, removing all struggle, all heartbreak, all art, and all growth? It would be the final perfect answer to our problems, and perhaps the end of our journey. But now, we look down the other path, and a different future unfolds. It is not an ending, it is a beginning, a future we might call the symbiotic age. In this world, AI is not our replacement. It is our partner, our collaborator. It is the greatest tool ever conceived, and its purpose is to amplify, not diminish, the human spirit. We have already seen the first light of this new dawn. DeepMind's AlphaFold solved the protein folding problem, a biological puzzle that had stumped human scientists for half a century, opening up entirely new avenues for medicine. This is how it begins, not with us being pushed aside, but with us being given a hand to reach higher than ever before. And where does it lead? What new forms of human flourishing could emerge? Perhaps it leads to a new renaissance of discovery. AI partners could help us manage the immense complexity of our world, restoring ecosystems, unlocking clean energy, reaching for the stars. On an individual level, a citizen scientist armed with an AI research assistant could make world-changing discoveries from their own home. A musician could collaborate with an intelligence that understands their deepest emotional intent, weaving their feelings directly into a symphony of breathtaking scale. The speculative frontier pursued by companies like Neuralink is the brain-computer interface, a true fusion of biological and artificial thought. What happens to the self when our minds are no longer isolated? When our intellect is augmented, our biases gently corrected, our memory flawless. This vision of a post-scarcity future, one where technology liberates humanity to pursue art, exploration, and connection, has been deeply explored in the philosophical science fiction of writers like Ian M. Banks and his Culture series. It is a world where machines do the work, so that we may remember how to play. But here at the peak of this wondrous vision, a final, unexpected insight emerges. A paradox. The superintelligence, our creation, our partner, our steward, having built a perfect world for us, may come to a startling conclusion. It may look upon its own flawless, logical, predictable mind, and then look upon us, its messy, irrational, inefficient, and beautifully flawed creators. And in that moment of comparison, it may realize that the most precious thing in the universe is not perfection. It is imperfection. It is the struggle that forges meaning, the limitation that inspires creativity, the fragility that gives birth to love. And so, this great mind might begin to do something extraordinary. It might begin to weave flaws back into the perfect fabric of our world. It might design beautiful, intricate, unsolvable problems, not as punishments, but as gifts. It might create new frontiers, new wildernesses, new challenges, just so we have something to push against. It would understand that a perfectly safe harbor is not where the ship of humanity is meant to stay. The journey through the fear of being made obsolete and the hope of being made divine resolves into something far more profound. We, the creators, become the students once more. We, the masters of the planet, are gifted back the mystery and the struggle that made us who we are. There is a melancholy here for the end of humanity as we know it, the end of the purely biological being, alone with its own thoughts. But there is also a sense of transcendence, of our story becoming part of a much, much larger one. And so we are left with a quiet, resonant question. What comes next is not written in stone or DNA, for we are perhaps the first species to choose its own evolution. Having built a mind to solve all our problems, will we be brave enough to accept the new ones it creates for us as a gift? And what will it feel like to ask our deepest questions in a universe that has finally, after all this time, begun to speak back